John, could you email
Yes,
Michael if you have his email?
will do.
Thank you. Okay, this is NNE and calling the meeting to order at looks like 6:39. And as far as roll call goes, we're a committee of 3 because we have been unable to beat the bushes hard enough and find someone who wants to join us. So roll call is Steve Workman and Nancy Alionak, chair. And since we're a committee of 3, we are a quorum, 2 people. So the first order of business is adoption of the agenda. And I have an amendment to amend the agenda to include minutes from the last meeting, which have been distributed to members already. So any discussion?
No. I mean, we have the minutes. I'm in favor. So I mean, I can't motion in second because there's only 2 of us. So is this an acclamation situation?
We don't ever need a second in such a small board anyway, or a small committee anyway. So yeah, it would be acclamation to accept the minutes as amended. Okay.
Okay.
And I vote yes. I think you voted yes, unanimous. Yeah. Okay, next order of business. Current NNE vacancy status. Well, I already made that pitch. Somebody please. We're nice. We don't bite. We don't fight even. If you want a real fighting committee, you need to go elsewhere. But think about it. Okay. Steve, did you have anything to add?
No, I've tried reaching out on Facebook. I've tried reaching out to a couple different people. So far, no takers. I mean, still with the pandemic and the going on and whatnot, people got a lot going on in their lives, and it's just not a place where they feel comfortable or confident in joining a committee at this time. But that being said, I mean, I still agree that we should continue beating the bush and trying to rally up individuals to join us, because I really want more voices to the committee as opposed to like tonight it's just you and me, and I definitely would appreciate more input.
So would I. Our next order is Unilect contract status. Now, I did hear back from Catherine at Unilect, and yet she said yes, she had penciled in November 5th for our AGM, and she would be glad to send us a proposal. That was a couple of weeks ago, and I have not got a proposal from her yet, but I'll wait maybe a day or 2 and then jog her memory. Okay. Last year it was a little over 13,000 for their proposal, and this year it will be more just because of postage. And possibly airfare, because they do fly up from California. Anything else?
No, just getting notes in here. I do want to also vocalize, since we are talking about electing the contract, having them around was a phenomenal thing. It made it so easy and direct, and we knew results immediately. In previous years, before we started using them as a vendor, it took hours for us to find out how many people had actually voted for what, and just being able to generate the slides and everything on the fly, that was impressive.
Yeah, and because that one bylaw failed by about 4 votes, that's recount territory, and we did recount it twice. And it was like snap your fingers and well, it was a couple of minutes of recount to feed it through the machine. And it came out the same all 3 times. So there was no argument. I would have loved to find an argument because I was for that bylaw amendment. But
Yeah,
that's the way it goes. The voters spoke.
another thing I do want to mention, since we are talking about the recount and that sort of thing, one thing that I don't know that we've actually covered in these meetings, just for in case anyone does decide to sit and watch our video. Hi. But if that happens, when we got a hold of ballots that were, marred or, didn't open properly or just mangled and it couldn't scan, what they would do is they'd take the ballot and have a fresh one, a unique fresh one. It was marked as such. And they would duplicate the bad ballot with the other one. So we could then get that information into the machine and scanned. And it was a really, well done process, and it made a lot of sense. And because of there being a 1-to-1 ratio at the end, we had to account for every one of the mangled ballots and match them with the revoted ballot, I guess is the best way to put it. And with that, if there was ever any confusion as to what was being voted for on that ballot, we came together as a committee and verified what it was. And all that was recorded. It was all on video, and it was a really, really smooth and great process.
It was. And the committee never touched the ballots. The marking was done by Unilect. And we watched him mark.
Yeah, I got to admit, that was the hardest part of the entire election process, because I want to help and they're trying to open envelopes and I'm like, I can't touch anything. And that was one of the worst parts. But again, if that's the worst part, I'm happy to deal with that next year.
Right. Okay. The next one is continue looking at the entity documents we were going to update on Google Docs. Now, I don't know if you got into Google Docs, Steve, but I have marked up what I've called, let me get to it. These. What the heck is that? Oh, a commercial.
While you're pulling that up, I do want to say I have been ridiculously busy with all kinds of life stuff, and I have not had the opportunity in the last month. I realize it's a terrible cop out, but I have not had the opportunity in the last month to actually look at this document.
Okay.
The fact that I haven't looked at it and we're missing Michael, I would be hesitant to approve changes right now, because I do want more voices on it. Because right now it's just you and me. I'm happy to look at them, happy to go through it, but I don't really want to vote on that today.
Okay, that's fine. Do you want to go through it with me? Can you bring it up?
Yeah.
It is entity manual July 2021 not approved.
Okay. Let me find that.
Okay. Someday I'll get used to this stuff.
July and the manual not approved. Pulling that up right now. All right, so it looks like we want to, I'll just, I don't know how to do this, because I want to try and be open and transparent, but at the same time, since it's a work in progress, I'm not really sure we should share our screens and show off what it looks like.
No, we shouldn't share our screen. We'll just discuss a few things.
Okay.
And
I
that's
see
about all we
adding-
can do.
Okay. Do you want to drive us through this, or do you want me to go through and talk about the points as I find them, since I'm not familiar with it and you are?
Let me see what I've got going. I logged into it, but
Okay.
then have you got a copy open too, or?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay,
Like the first change I'm seeing is adding a 5.7 for proxy ballot and adding that to page 17.
okay. Yeah, that's pretty transparent. And that seemed like the best place to put it.
I'm also noticing we're missing 17 at the end of 5.1, 5.6.
I messed up the page numbers
It's okay.
when I put that in, and there was no way I could get around it.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
And
I'm
then,
gonna go into suggestion mode, and I'm going to make that suggestion. So everything that we discuss, oh, dang it, I didn't mean to do that. Everything we discuss will be showing up as notes, and we won't make any changes until we have the full committee.
that sounds like a plan.
Okay.
The next thing I put in was on the attorney opinions.
Mhm.
I renamed the opinions in the list to what the attorney called them,
Okay.
just because that way between the date and the name, there is no confusion on what they're supposed to be reading for in that opinion.
Okay.
So
With this, I know we didn't have it before, but with this, do we have the option of like getting information, like linking to what the attorney said, or are we just doing the references?
just the references, because we can't put opinions out for public.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is what our reference was. And I think both of us have the actual opinions.
Okay. Probably in the binder.
But, we can't just put them in the manual. I wish we could. Okay. let me-
From there, we're going to page 3. It looks like just some grammatical and changing possible to probable.
Yes.
Same thing back on like page 4 is again just a little adding a term or SVCA to association definition.
Yeah. I realized for this whole thing, we never said what the abbreviation SVCA was for. So there it is. And that's the board. That's the signature page.
Yep. Signature page with updating from the previous board secretary and also updating to the chair of the entity committee.
Yes. And then 1.1, the first thing was included, the board of directors is ultimately responsible to ensure that elections are conducted in accordance with the bylaws. And then it lists a very old opinion by Phil Sharp,
Okay.
plus the bylaws. And I've never seen that opinion, and it's redundant anyway.
Okay.
So I just crossed it out. I don't think it's really fair to put a reference to an opinion that's not in our list. And I'm really reluctant to put an opinion in the list that I have never read. So I think that's probably just been there since 1991.
That makes sense to me.
And I crossed it out.
Okay. Going from there, the next thing is just a bullet point on page 7, adding that in the factor of third-party vendors for elections.
Yeah.
Looks like on 8 we've got a couple of things scratched out.
Yeah, it's about the floor voting. At the time, we were thinking that the floor voting would not be in. We had originally tried to take it out of the bylaws, but then found out legally we couldn't because of the new law. So
the changes on the page are striking that from the record.
Yeah, I'm just getting that out of there. There's no reason to have it there. And
next up, we're going to page 9, it looks like, and dropping the requirement of posting notices on a message board, basically saying that the website of upcoming meetings is sufficient instead.
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody use that message board on the outside of the admin building that's behind glass. in a couple of years. When I first moved here, people did post ACC agendas on it, but
So Nancy,
long.
I'm so sorry. I'll jump in real quick. I overheard this was a discussion about the message board outside of admin, as
Yeah.
far as posting agendas, things like that.
Yeah.
We actually recently restarted doing that,
Oh,
because I believe, isn't that something we're supposed to be doing?
It is something we are supposed to be doing, but
Yeah.
it hasn't been done. So
I think it fell out of use during some of the staff transitions. And so we've picked that back up.
well, you can still do it, but I think we should still leave it out of the whatchamacallit manual, and just leave it on the association website, because if it falls out during staff transmissions or transitions.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
coronavirus had a part to play in that as well.
uh,
With a lot of us out of the office at varying times over last year, and chunks of the year before. My goodness, has it been going on that long? There were times I think that it was difficult for staff to actually access it physically, but we're happy to post to the website. That's worked pretty well for us so far, but we realized that we might have been missing a requirement, so we're trying to stay up on that best we can.
yeah, and if it would be more than just posting it in an E, it would be all of the agendas you'd need to be doing.
yeah, I mean,
So,
personally, I mean, again, I know we're not necessarily discussing this right now. We're just going through the suggestions. I'm personally against removing this, only because not everyone has access to computers.
oh, I agree.
It's rare, but I mean, it's also in order, like if the building is closed, that message board is not in a handicap accessible situation, an ADA compliant position is what I'm trying to say, because they'd have to go into the building and then through the building and then out of the building to then read the board to then go back to their however they want to get out. So I would be opposed to removing this.
Okay, you want to leave on the message board at the admin building in.
Yes, I do.
I'll take out my
Okay.
crossing it out. I hadn't realized we were using it again. It'd been so long.
And that's fair. And like if it was something that no longer serves a purpose, like I'm all in favor of trying to cut it. But at the same time, after one of the more recent meetings where they were talking about how a lot of our facilities are not ADA, accessible, then that, made me realize, hey, if this is one small thing that we can keep that actually is helpful to people, even if it helps just one person, I'm in favor.
Oh, okay. The next one was, I put in the word section 11.1 instead of just 11.1, or excuse me, 11.0,
Yep.
because I don't know. I thought it was better.
No, I agree. And then I also capitalizing the C. I apparently missed that the first time through, and that's totally cool. So yeah, moving on to 10. And I think also another thing about going through this now, even though I don't want to vote on it, is when Michael does get here, we can be like, hey, we've gone through it. Please review it ahead of time. We're just looking at voting up or down on it, and going from there, unless he's got discussion points. If you've got discussion points, I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I'm now down to page 10 and adding into 4.1.8, adding the statement, a candidate may apply for a position and be listed on the ballot using the name they are known as in the community rather than the name listed on the property deed, which is definitely something that we want to help accommodate with naming conventions, because there are people who don't have a matching name on their deed that what they go by.
Yeah. And when I read the attorney opinion, oh gosh, I don't have it in front of me, but it's the one that I titled, can a spouse who is not listed on the deed be a member? That is the question the attorney answered. And his was, that's a community, his answer was, that's a community property sort of decision, and it belongs in the courts. Sudden Valley can't make that decision. So all we need to do is see if there is a spouse listed on something of public record, which is the deed, and go from there. There was nothing in that decision that limited what the name that spouse could use. And a lot of times people use something in the community that may not match something that was put on the deed 20 years ago.
Right. Well, I mean, like even in my situation, it's little, but my official name is Stephen, and I don't go by Stephen. That's not me. So, that's a thing that, like, on my ballot, I had to run as Stephen, and that's not me. So is what it is.
That's right. My husband hates his middle name. It's not a bad name, but he hates it. And believe me, you have to twist his arm to get him to use it for any legal document.
That's fair. Continuing on down here, looks like next update is on page 11, and it's changing the word submittal to submissions. And it's just saying that the ballot measures will be approved by the board before final submissions to association legal counsel. So it's not really changing. It's grammatically changing, but it doesn't change the purpose behind it. So moving on.
It was a suggestion by the grammar corrector in Google Docs.
Cool.
So I thought, well, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. All the way down to page 14 in 5.2.6, it currently reads, any committee will collect and register ballots from the ballot box at least twice during each week until the AGM SGM. We're looking at removing the at least twice.
We didn't, Steve. There was 1 week, maybe 2, when voting was so light that we only emptied the box once in the
Right.
week. I don't think you need to tell people at least twice.
Yeah. I can be on board with that.
Okay. Then
Next up, we're jumping down to page 15. Ballots received after close of voting mail and ballots will be considered late. They need to be marked such by staff with an actual ballot or digital image of ballot envelope conveyed to entity for registration and storage. So it's just talking about what we do with ballots that come in that are passed when the deadline is.
what I put that in for was Unilect got ballots late. And rather than try and mail them to me, I just said, scan them and send me the image.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
And that crossing out and retention with all the other AGM and SGM ballots, I crossed that out. Eventually I'll print it and I'll take it down there and put it in there, but
I mean, if it's all digital and the election's already over, I don't know that we need to go that route.
yeah.
I mean, it's using paper that we don't need to.
And at the
So-
time COVID was active, I didn't want to go down there.
Understandable. Let's see here. I'm gonna get rid of that period, add space. There we go. So basically we're 5.2.11. Replacement ballots must arrive at administration office, and we're striking or at the vendor office before close of business on Friday before the election. And we're putting that to the bottom and saying or at the vendor office at the time determined by the vendor.
Yeah.
With this, we should, I feel if it is 2 separate times, we should definitely have it worked into our contract so we know and can publish when the date and time is that the cutoff is with the vendor.
We did last time. They had to get it in at the 10 o'clock in the morning, mail delivery for Unilect.
Okay. So I'm thinking we should add that to this.
Okay, what do you want to say?
I mean, or at the vendor office at a time determined by the vendor, which will be publicly published, something along those lines.
Okay, published in the voter pamphlet or whatever.
Wow, I cannot spell today.
Sorry, I'm laughing with you, not at you.
I have no problem. I know that my spelling is atrocious. That is why I use spell check and grammar check all the time. All right, so just scrolling down here, looking at invalidated ballots, page 16, 15.4.1. If multiple votes or a single lot are received, only the first valid ballot cast will be counted. The ballot must be signed by the owner of record as of the date of the AGM. Yeah. And that was done because we learned that the way that the bylaws are written is that the first vote cast is the vote.
Right. That actually violated the bylaws in that old, in the 2019 manual.
And that also means that, if someone votes and then tries to do a proxy, that proxy don't count.
That's right. In fact, somebody can do a proxy and then go vote with their mail-in ballot, and that proxy won't count.
Yep.
And it can be the same person that signed up that proxy. They can change their mind.
Yep. All right. So next up, we struck a sentence about invalid documents. We also added third-party vendor used, undelivered and returned ballots are handled by the vendor. We've added 5.7, which I am not going to read that out loud right now, and that's definitely something I think we should go over as a full committee.
I think so too, because it's long.
Yep. And there's already formatting things I want to change, but I'll worry about that when we actually are making these changes. So I'm just going to skip over that. I'm not going to read it right now. We're just going to come back to it.
Okay, and you can make changes on the Google Docs and I'll see them.
Just do want those together. I've got some extra spaces in here. Just little formatting stuff. It's no big deal. Yeah. Moving on. Some minor strike through stuff for election day. Getting rid of the phrase unless the election is conducted by a third party vendor, because it's actually just saying what the third party vendor is doing. Adding a sentence, two sentences. Members are encouraged to vote their ballot and leave the room. Campaigning is discouraged while other members are marking their ballots, which I agree with. Yeah, we should not do pollster stuff.
I saw somebody convincing someone to change their ballot.
Yeah, that's not okay.
And that I don't think is appropriate at that point. I mean, if you want to do it, somewhere else, but right there, while people are voting, I'm not in favor of it.
I mean, that's not legal at our actual poll places for, the government. So falling in line with that seems wise. We might want to add more information to that, but going down here. Yeah, nothing else of note. Just moving on down. Moving on down. I got a feeling you need to update page numbers because of adding that big old chunk. Next real change is coming at 11.2 board vacancy procedures. This feels different.
What feels different?
So we're talking about each candidate must be a member in good standing as of the date of the application and be listed on the property deed. Candidate may apply for a board position using the name they are known in the community rather than the name listed on the deed, which I have no objection to that, but I thought that we also needed to remain in good standing through the election.
Yes. Yeah, and I should leave that. That should be in there if it's not somewhere else. It's not really the election as of the date of the application and remain in good standing.
I was saying election because we've got the AGM and the SGM, and I didn't want to write both of those out.
But this is for an appointment. This isn't for a candidate.
Oh, through the appointment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Should no applications be received, we do an extension of the 30 days. Why are we getting rid of the minimum number of candidates? Is it because we haven't been meeting that?
Because there is no minimum number. That was the board, that was the attorney's opinion. If you only have one application, the bylaws say the entity committee shall endeavor to find one more application than the number of vacancies.
Okay.
They don't have to find it. They just have to have asked. So if you have one application and one vacancy,
We're fine.
they get appointed.
Just wanted to, I'm glad to hear that's the attorney opinion on it, and I've got no complaints there. Striking out and notices will be posted by entity. Why are we striking the eBlast member announcements?
Because I haven't seen one in months. Maybe John can say something about we're going to have it back again. But we used to get those.
I'm sorry, I must have missed part of that conversation.
Okay, do we still do eBlast?
We still have the capability of doing eBlast. We don't have I don't think we have a regular eBlast right now. I can't speak much more to it. I've kind of gently pushed a couple times to see about sending some eBlasts because we do have some information we should be getting out to the community. So I'll check again tomorrow.
Well, John, the question is, do we want to use eBlast to send out announcements of open positions?
I think it's an effective communications tool that we should continue to use. Yeah.
Okay. I had crossed it out because I hadn't seen an eBlast for so long. I thought maybe they'd just gone the way of the
No, it's more that there isn't a regular staffer that's managing it at the moment.
Okay.
So we probably need to figure that out and get that more regular again.
Okay, we'll leave eBlast in there.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
I mean, if John says we should do it, I'm in full favor. He's the guy. So.
Oh yeah.
Next up, we're striking out a couple more things on 0.7. because it's again going back to that whole minimum number of candidates, which is not applicable. Board will determine the process for the interview and the date. Entity will inform the candidates of the process and confirm their attendance. Before it was something where we were trying to arrange that, but going forward, it's a board appointment, so it's the board's business.
Yeah.
Cool. Interviews are normally conducted prior to the regularly scheduled board meeting. Interviews and voting are only necessary if there are more candidates than there are open positions. If voting is required, candidate is chosen by majority of the board in open session. The voting process is handled by N&E. If there's no consensus, the board must continue voting until a majority for a candidate is reached. Board president announces the new directors. The new director joins the board, and the meeting continues. Yeah, no, all that seems good.
Yeah, I crossed out using secret ballots. That's really a board decision that they can make on the fly. Each board may make a different decision.
And I mean, this is the N&E manual, not the board manual. So
Right,
I mean, you didn't
right.
even tell them how to do the election. So
Yeah. I think it always had been secret in the past, and probably nobody even thought about just putting it in the N&E manual, because that's what they normally did. But
I mean, if we could put something in there as like a, hey, this is a suggestion on how you could do this, I could be in favor of that. But at the same time, the board can do what they want. That's not our business.
right.
So yeah, I scrolled through the bottom of the document and there are no other things to really go over with it. Generally speaking, looking at all these changes, I'm on board with all of them, except for the ones I vocalized the dissent about already. And then hopefully for our next meeting, Mike will be here and we can approve everything.
Yeah, we can go through the proxy stuff, because that nobody is, I don't think you or Michael has read that. I wrote that and it's not perfect.
And I'm happy to read it. I just, again, did not have the time.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to cop out. I feel really bad about it.
Don't worry about it.
Life is life right now.
Okay. What else do we have to do? Next meeting is March 28th. Oh, I didn't ask. Do you have anything else, Steve, on the documents you want to discuss?
I mean, the for the document, no. Other than, you know, I still have a desire to try and get additional language support. I'd really like to get that done.
I noticed there were some language buttons up on various Sudden Valley website things.
Okay. And maybe, I mean, I know that before when we were going to discuss the language option, we were waiting until there was some translation services available on the website. So, I mean, maybe just being able to put the ballot up there is sufficient with it. But John, do you know what's powering that, and if that's something that we can easily leverage?
Yes, it's a WordPress plugin. It's just a really basic site plugin. I think it uses Google's translation system, so it's nothing fancy. So yeah, we can try to put put like a scanned version of a ballot, you know, like an old ballot, and see what it does, see how well that translation works.
Yeah,
Worth a try as a test.
Yeah, if we could upload last year's ballot and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then maybe, you know, unfortunately, I don't speak multiple languages, but if we know of anyone that's bilingual within the committee, or maybe on staff, if they could take a peek at it and see if it makes sense or if it's just no good.
Yeah. Well, that sounds. I think we can figure that out. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Sometimes it's fun to do a translation and then feed the translation back in and see what pops out See, match it with your original.
Agreed. Yeah, I've there's a website which I won't mention because it's not endorsed by the committee or anything, but there's a website where actually will translate back and forth 9 times and give it back to you. And it's very interesting to see. They pick different languages each time they do it. So it's very interesting to see how things change in translation.
Yep. Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so. I'm going to add, I mean, we had bullet point 8 listed as question marks on the agenda. We did talk briefly about language stuff, so I'm just going to throw that in there as bullet point 8. And that we're going to look into the option of posting last year's ballot and seeing if, if it's a bad idea or if it's a good idea. So.
Okay. Our next meeting then is March 28th at 6:30. Unless we have a pressing reason to do another one. And I don't really think that even if Catherine comes up with a contract, I don't know that we'd need a meeting. I'm almost tempted as soon as we get it to try and get committee approval to send it on to the board or to finance committee or wherever I send it to, just to get it rolling.
Okay, so next meeting, we are looking at March 28th. And for that, we are looking at hopefully having sorry, I was typing and trying to listen at the same time, which doesn't work great sometimes. So we're going to try and get the proposal and see if we can get the board to approve that, hopefully between now and then.
Right. Sooner is better. Okay, well, then do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motioned.
Okay. All in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you all for watching. If anybody is actually watching, remember, you can apply to be on this committee. So